first set the scene. We are going back in time here like it is Back to the Future, but Seth Rollins was the Intercontinental Champion, and Chris Jericho had an idea, and he went to speak to Vincent McMahon. Because why don't we do the WWE Intercontinental Champion taking on the New Japan Intercontinental Champion, and we can come up with some kind of DQ finish so all the promotions are happy, and also that person can be directly involved in the WWE belt, and you've also got a brand new feud as we march forward. Now yes, instantly you have to forget about the fact NJPW titles can change hands on a disqualification, but I'm sure we could have sorted that out. And again, the focus still technically would have been Seth Rollins. And when the man heard this idea, he probably went, "Oh, that's great, pal." And he said no. Because if you don't know, Vince was never into this stuff, and on his own podcast, Talk is Jericho, Chris Jericho did go into details about this, as did Dave Meltzer in a 2018 Wrestling Observer newsletter, so it's all out there. When Meltzer did this as well, though, he also tied it in with this 1990s nugget, when head of WCW Jim Herd had looked at the books and gone, "Man, we need to come up with something big here," and he too went to Vince McMahon and said, "Why don't we do WCW versus the then WWF? And you know what, Vince? I will give you booking power." I am not kidding. And we can read it together here. I have it down here on my magical computer screen, because Dave wrote, back in the 90s during the Jim Herd reign, Herd pinched Vince on the idea of a WWF versus WCW pay-per-view, thinking it could do record business, and it would. And he even gave Vince control of all the finishes. But this was when WCW was down, and Vince didn't do it, nor did anybody expect that he was going to. And let's get things straight in case your brain is whirring. This would have been way more beneficial to World Championship Wrestling than the World Wrestling Federation. Because once again, we are talking about the early 90s. It wasn't until 1996 and the formation of the NWO when all of a sudden WCW did get to the tippity top of the industry. And before that, they had some good moments. They also sort of lost their way. It's also fair to say that WWF wasn't where it was going to be either, but they were still technically number one. Sometimes in a two-horse race, even if you kind of suck, well, at least you don't suck as much as the other guy. Now, of course, the other big thing we need to talk about is the fact that Vince McMahon would have been in control. Just in case you're going, well, why wouldn't he do that? Well, I can get that tied up right now. It wouldn't have made a difference anyway, because let's go to 2001, when Vince did buy WCW. Do you remember the invasion angle? It was barely an invasion. It was just like, that's a WWF guy, that's a WWF guy, that's a WWF guy, and you are going to find these WCW idiots, and you're gonna crush them and kill them. I mean, we really did throw the idea of competition out the window. Just to remind everyone that the World Wrestling Federation was the dominant brand, even though we knew that because they had literally bought the other company. So yeah, sure, while it would have meant we would have got the likes of Sting and Lex Luger and Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair taking on, I don't know, Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart and Randy Savage, the wrestlers that I mentioned at the start of this sentence, all of them would have been wrecked. Because don't pretend that anything changed within that decade. The way Vince McMahon felt about WCW in the early 90s was exactly how he felt in 2001. Now, I really don't think fans would have cared either. We can use WrestleMania 18 as evidence of this, because there we did have two legends in the ring, and nobody was thinking about where they were or where they were gonna go. It just felt like something we were never gonna get. So even if the booking had been crap, who cares as long as we got to this destination to begin with. Well, let's say in 1991, Surfer Sting did take on Hulkamania. We'd all be going, yeah. Then sure, Hulk would have dropped the leg and beat him in 2 minutes, and we would have been mad, but at least we had that initial feeling. Now, obviously, this would have ruined morale backstage in WCW, because they would have felt totally slighted. That's why Jim Herd was a little bit of a madman. He had lots of ideas, and a few of them were absolute pants. I mean, soon after this, he called Ric Flair into his office and said, look, the Nature Boy is done. You need to cut your hair and start calling yourself Spartacus. This is a real thing, and it's one of the reasons why Ric Flair left WCW and jumped to the WWF with the WCW World Championship, because you had to put a deposit on that damn belt, and when WCW didn't repay that cash, Ric was like, this is mine now, I'm leaving. That was absolutely awesome too, because it was like a proper invasion. And let's not forget, Vince McMahon was so pleased about this, he booked Ric Flair to win the 1992 Royal Rumble, as Flair kept calling himself the real world champion. So that sort of sums it up as well. You actually need the real life hate in order to buy it. Flair also had that great feud with the Macho Man, and again it came down to the tension. So I'm sure Jim Herd, when this was happening, was having an absolute meltdown. So if they were just working together and Vince McMahon took his cast of characters and they steamrolled the rest, Well, by match 5, you probably would have been bored. It's sort of the same for Lex Luger as well, who of course got that monster push after his narcissistic gimmick. But what happened soon after that? Nobody at the WWF realized his contract had lapsed, and that's how Lex was able to appear on the first ever episode of WCW. And backstage in the WWF offices, they genuinely thought Luger had broken his deal. And they looked at the books and they went, damn it, we screwed up. But there it is once again though, it's another big impromptu moment, and that's why the Monday Night Wars became so big. It wasn't because things were being planned here, it's because shit was just happening. So I really do think if we had had one structured inter-promotional pay-per-view, all before this, it would have ruined everything that was gonna come a few years afterwards. As a nerd fan, I wouldn't want to give that up. I also wonder if it would have changed the perception about Hulk Hogan jumping ship in 1994. It's one of the big draws then was turning into WCW and going, well, hot damn. Hulk Hogan is on the competition? What's next? Pigs hanging out in hell? I think I've got those phrases confused. It did have so much novelty though, and if we had seen, I don't know, Hulkamania running wild over Barry Windham back in 1991, well, you've seen it. Once you've seen it once, you can't unsee it. Also, if Vince McMahon does have his way with WCW in the early 90s, when we get to 1996, does Nitro even take off in the way it was meant to? Because again, we are talking about sliding doors moments here. We are screwing with the timeline. And also, what would have WCW got out of this? I mean, maybe they would have got a little bit of love and maybe a small increase in revenue, but that only lasts so long. Just know somehow it would have benefited the WWF more. So it is interesting that my man turned this down, but maybe he had realized, oh my gosh, they could be on the cusp of turning the page, and all they need is one big feud, and that could be it for me. And he didn't want to hand it to them. I mean, even after they blew up in 1996, Vince McMahon would walk around saying, we're never going to leave the door open again. AEW happened, but that's a different video for a different day. So just to repeat myself, I really do think when you go through this and read all the documentation, we had it way better, even though for years fans were desperate for the WWF versus WCW smasheroo. But really, unless you're doing it in Japan, well, American companies never make it work. There's too much ego. It also begs the question where we would be at today, because come 1994, the entire business needed an injection of something. I like to think that it was the competition between the two that set us on the right path. Now you know though, and really given the new era, if you're into companies working together, well in 2024 that's way more likely. I mean, look at TNA and NXT. That has been totally great, but no, before you erupt in the comments, we are never going to get WWE versus AEW, because that is proper bad blood. And also, who would be calling the shots there? Triple H ain't gonna give way to Tony Khan, and Tony Khan ain't gonna give way to Triple H. So it'd be an absolute fallout anyway. And yes, fine, sure, maybe one buys the other, but also I don't think that's ever gonna happen for reasons I don't want to get into, because we'll get really, really bored. But it's still fun to speculate. You can probably do that in the comments. It really is interesting though, and a fascinating insight into the world of wrestling, because it goes to show if you do run a wrestling promotion and the chips are down, you will sit in your big chair and you will consider everything, because nobody wants to go out of business. The same for WWE. Go and look where their numbers were down, what they thought about doing. Some of it is actually borderline offensive. It also kind of explains what happened to WCW in 2000, which because of my job, which I'm very happy to have, I have to watch all of the time. And it gets worse, or better, depending on your perspective. Let's just never do that again. I don't need Judy Bagwell on a pole, or on a forklift, or on anything that would suspend her in the air. I mean, it really, really was the worst of times. Now, of course, there's loads to say about this, so make sure you drop me a comment below. And maybe you were around in the early 90s. What kind of matches would you have wanted to see if WCW was about to take on the WWF? I would have gone crazy. This was actually a few years later, but I would have done Sting versus Duke the Dumpster Droese. Also, please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And if you would like my thoughts on more WCW stuff, you can click the video that's on the screen right now. Otherwise, I appreciate you, my friends. See you soon.